Introducing a lineup of international award-winning and talented indie authors, only on the Writers' Corner live show. Dr. Anne Katona Linn's book, Shedding Lies Living Beyond Childhood Trauma, offers groundbreaking perspectives on living beyond childhood trauma. It offers readers actionable steps and guides you to go from surviving to thriving. Stay tuned for today's show of the Writers' Corner live show. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Welcome to the Writers' Corner live show, the weekly water cooler for authors and readers. Join us for 30 minutes of insightful conversation with some of the biggest names in the industry. We feature award-winning authors, New York Times and USA Today bestsellers, and even international indie sensations. Tune in and join our family-friendly community only on the Writers' Corner live show. If you're just joining us, then welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. If you're not yet following us, please do, because if you do follow us on social media, you'll get a notification when we go live, so you'll know next time when we have a new author on the show. Today's show, we're going to be talking to Dr. Anne Katona Linn. And if this is the first time that you're watching the show, we'd love to give you a shout out. So special warm welcome. If you're watching us on Amazon Live, on Twitter, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, wherever you're watching us, a very, very warm welcome to you. But before we bring Dr. Anne to come and join us, I want to first introduce my friend and co-host, Mary Elizabeth Jackson. Mary is a passionate author herself and a certified special needs and disabilities advocate, and she's committed to amplifying underrepresented voices. She's also a speaker, educator, ghostwriter, and songwriter. And with that, Mary, how are you today, my friend?
I am fantastic. I am so excited to be here today. As always, we just love our show. We've been doing this almost 5 years. And today's show is nothing less than spectacular as well. We're so excited about our author today, aren't we?
I'm absolutely excited and very passionate about today's show. And the reason for that is I think there are very, very, very few of us who've not had some or the other form of childhood trauma. And this is a very, very important topic. You know, we've just come out of a pandemic, and mental health is a big issue. And so I think this book is incredibly timely. So even if you didn't have childhood trauma, you've had adulthood trauma. We've all had trauma of some kind.
Yeah.
So I think it's really, a great topic, and timing is just perfect. So for those of you who don't know Dr. Anne Katona Linn, she offers a very fresh perspective on healing, challenging conventional notions, and providing practical strategies for resilience and growth. She's a very, very passionate advocate for healing from childhood trauma. She's an educational coach and leader, and she's dedicated her entire career to helping schools and communities develop safe, supportive, and positive school climates for both the children and teachers. And she's received multiple awards for her expertise in classroom management, mental health, and special education. And with that, let's just give her a warm welcome to the show, shall we?
Hello, Dr. Anne.
Hi, great to be with you today.
Oh, we're so excited to have you. Yeah, we're going to dive right in, right, Brigetti? Okay.
Welcome to the show. We are so privileged to have you join us, and can't wait to just dive into talking about the book. So, without any further ado, I'm going to just jump right into, because we've got a bunch of questions we want to ask you, and unfortunately, time is always limited. We always wish that the show is just a little bit longer, because there's always questions at the end. We think, we wish we had time to talk a little bit more. So I'm going to jump right in with asking you, or just saying, firstly, congratulations on your book. It's an amazing book. So how does Shedding Lies offer a fresh perspective on the journey to living beyond childhood trauma?
Mhm.
And when you were doing your research for this book, were there any unexpected or surprising findings that challenge commonly held beliefs about the impact of trauma? I know
Yeah.
that's a bit of a mouthful. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. This book is, it's my research has been my life and my career. I've made my career out of trying to overcome a lot of the things that I went through and uh, really trying to figure out myself, which is what so much of my research, my doctoral research even, was on kindergarten entry assessment, looking at, what's currently happening and how can we do better, because that was such a pivotal time for me in my life when I had a significant trauma that happened that really impacted me. And I think some of the things that came up for me that were really, surprising. I think, just recognizing the lies. We don't often realize the lies that we tell ourselves, that those are some of the barriers that prevent us from healing. And unless we can really recognize what are the lies that we tell ourselves, then we're not going to be able to go past them and find out what the truth is, because it's our own voice. It's our own voice talking to ourselves. It's those negative things that we keep on telling ourselves. And unless we can kind of show it to the light, and bring it out so that it can be seen, it's really difficult to get past that. So I think that the lies were so insidious as well. One of the big things that really popped up for me was around emotional neglect. So, childhood emotional neglect, because it's such a subtle thing that we don't even realize that it's happening. And especially when I was growing up in the 70s, and that we just didn't talk about things, and that realizing how, if we're not seeing outward behaviors and problems, that we think everything is okay. And for me, my biggest lie was putting on a mask and showing everyone, trying to look like everything was perfect, and always trying to achieve and trying to show something different than what was really going on the inside. So I think, to kind of answer your question, that all of those pieces, that, you know, hiding things, and those listening to those lies that I was telling myself, that I thought others were telling me, yet they were not true. But unless I'm listening to what other people are talking, are saying, and really asking questions and letting people know what I'm feeling, then it's difficult to heal. And I was a kid. I didn't, we didn't know. And even now, as an adult, a lot of times we don't think about how do we talk about our feelings? We're not even aware of our feelings. We're not aware of how things impact us until it comes out in a way. For me, it came out as physical illness. I have 4 autoimmune diseases, and that was a huge piece that I didn't fully make the connection to throughout my life. I just kind of tried to go past that. So I know I gave you a lot of information, but those are all kind of some of the big ahas that I think came up for me as I was writing this book, and that I continue to try to talk about them in a way so that I try to always focus on creating safe environments so that people can talk about things that are, that they may be struggling with, and just for them to be aware of for themselves.
Wow.
Very
Oh my
important.
goodness.
Yeah,
We could talk
I
about
know,
this all
right?
day.
Like we need an hour with Anne, I think. Dr. Anne, don't we? We need like an hour. And Brigetti and I were talking about some of this stuff before Anne jumped on, and just how we all come from a place of brokenness. Most of us do from our childhoods, kind of how we're operating as adults, you know. And I love what you're saying, because I have a child who went through trauma at 5 as well. But, you know, can you share a unique insight or breakthrough moment from your book, Shedding Lies, which I love the title and we love the cover, that might inspire readers, you know, to reevaluate, I guess in a very gentle way, maybe their own childhood traumas? Because I know for some people, some of them are too bad to maybe go back and look, but, you know, like probably a gentle way, something that's very calm and they feel safe to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, one of the big mindset, I had to kind of shift a mindset. I didn't realize, again, that's part of the lies. And rather than looking at what's wrong with me, because that's what I spent so much of my life doing, was what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me. And that actually kept me in a fixed mindset that prevented me from healing. And then once I learned about adverse childhood experiences, I understood more of the shift to what happened to me. And so that alone, I think, was such um, a huge piece of really taking away some of that shame, because it took it from being internal to, these are just things that happened to me and I experienced them. And so I think we get stuck in shame that, why am I not just getting over this? Why am I not just healing? And we can't until we can, again, kind of shed light. That was one of the when I chose the cover of the book, I really wanted it to be uplifting and hopeful, because for me, the shedding of those lies and opening it up to the light is, scary. And on the other side, there's so much hope. There's so much hope and healing and breaking down those lies. They don't have to, pull everything off all at one time, but it's kind of like, look at a little band-aid. Maybe there's a little band-aid, but that shifting that mindset from what's wrong with me to what happened to me, and always going back to that. I think that's powerful, because it moves us away from being paralyzed in, this is the way I am, and I'm going to throw up my hands and there's nothing I could do, to, okay, there are things that happen to me, and what can I do to overcome them? So just that first mindset shift, I think, is huge in just the beginning, to make it safe for yourself, so that you're taking it out of, this is all on me to heal. It's okay to ask for help, and that we should ask for help, and we should practice it often, asking for help. And sometimes our family members or our closest friends are not necessarily the safest people for us at the time, because they've also gone through a lot of trauma. And so, opening up to someone who is a professional, you know, that can be really powerful. To, again, you always want to make sure that you have a safe space and a safe environment to share, because if not, it's going to push that pain down again. If you have one person that says something, negative, that they're not aware of how they're coming across or what they're saying to you, that can shut you down. And so I think it's really important to talk to someone professionally, um, or even on like Facebook chats, just because it's, again, finding places that you may feel safe, and if you can at least detach yourself a little bit more, if for whatever reason that you're not feeling safe in a, like a Facebook group or something like that. Though I think a lot of times like tend to gravitate towards like, and so it's just a place to dip your toes in, I think is a good place to go.
Absolutely. I think we all need a safe space, um, where you don't feel any level of judgment, or that there won't be any repercussions of what you've said or disclosed.
Yeah.
And once that is threatened in any way, your body just shuts down again. So I can totally relate to that. Oh, could you share with us maybe a practical technique or approach that you share in the book, that readers could help, that they could implement themselves?
Mhm.
Are there any is there any advice in there that someone who reads the book can say, aha, I can do this?
Mhm. Yeah, I think, kind of a tool that I used to help with shifting my mindset was forgiving myself. So in every chapter, there's kind of a lie that I expose. And so at the end of the chapter, I share, so for example, I forgive myself for buying into the lie that my family didn't love me or they didn't want me. And that was, the truth is, so I switched it. So I forgive myself for buying into the lie that my family didn't want me and didn't love me. And the truth is, they did love me and they did want me. And they had been through trauma as well. And so they did the best with what they had. It's not saying for people to forgive and forget everything, that if people have really wounded you, it's it's being able to look at what are the lies that we're telling ourselves. That was just a tool. I forgive myself for the lie that whatever that lie is, the truth is this. And just practicing that and writing it down, journaling it, can help you shift your mindset from, again, that what's wrong with me to what happened to me. So to me, that was a really powerful tool as I wrote the book that came up, that I think is extremely helpful. And again, kind of a safe place uh, to start doing some of that work.
Yeah, it's that's really super important. And shifting that from being a victim to a victor,
Yeah.
to not be continuing to give your power away is very important. So, you delve into the concept of shedding lies in your book, and that's, your cover, your title is that. What is that? Can you give us a little glimpse into what does it mean and how it empowers readers to move forward on their healing journey? Like, for somebody, what does shedding lies mean? What would it mean to them or look like?
Yeah. Again, I shared that tip, and it's, the tips of I forgive myself for buying into the lie. So shifting that mindset and, you know, really kind of the lie, not even just our self-talk, the lie of the masks that we often put on. And that may be a little bit harder for people because we've had these masks for so long, we often don't even know that we have them. It is it's just looking at what are the things that are actually beneficial to me, and so what are the parts of my life that are beneficial and are real? Like, when am I real? What's
Mm.
going on when I'm really real to myself? I don't have to be real to anyone else yet. I'm just trying to focus on what is it that, how can I be real for myself? And so looking at who we are, and, again, sometimes that can be scary. It's just looking at, I was a child who tried to cover up and tried to be, everything for everyone else. And so I had to shed that lie, and just acknowledging that. I think that's it's not saying I throw away all those. There were a lot of positive things that came out of that. I was very athletic. I accomplished a lot. And so it's not that all of those things are bad. It's just that at the time I was striving. And so giving myself rest, allowing myself to take a break and take it easy on myself. Those are some of the lies that I don't have to prove myself to everyone, and I don't have to try and be someone that I think everyone else wants me to be. It really is about just who am I really, in terms of not just my roles for other people. You know, what are my gifts? What are my areas for growth? I think looking at even what are the gifts, what are our strengths? That's something we often don't look at. We only look at those things that are damaged. And so, that shedding of lies, I had to really look at my strengths and go, well, yeah, I'm really, yes, I struggle with that, but I also really like one of the things that I could do, I can see the big picture of things. Like I can connect dots and see things that maybe others may not necessarily be able to see. So for me, that's kind of part of the shedding lies. Again, what are the truths about myself? So it's always coming back to what is the truth about me and not what I think they should be. What are the real truths? And sometimes that takes time and they're harder to believe. So just going back to that, getting into a practice of I forgive myself for buying into the lie and then shifting that. And like I said, journaling, saying it out loud, just little simple things like that can help you really start to make a difference, little baby steps that feel safe to get you to that journey of healing. I think is such a big piece. And that there is hope on the other side, that, that scary thought of opening up about those things, the little baby steps that you do and just start with one thing, such as shifting your mindset and doing it regularly, daily. What are you thankful for of yourself? And being grateful. I'm really thankful that I can see the big picture of things. I'm thankful that I have accomplished a lot, so it's again, little shifts that I think that the more we can put them in our day, rather than feeling like we have to break open this big wide wound, what are those little things? And that to
Yeah.
me is what, shedding lies is, those little subtle things that we often miss.
So we very much sort of have lived through a hush environment. You don't talk about stuff. These are family secrets. You keep to yourself, forget about the past, don't live in the past, is what people say to each other. Does shedding lies address the stigma that's associated with talking about childhood trauma?
Mhm.
And how do we create a safe environment where people feel that it's okay, or where people feel supported enough to be
Mhm.
able to talk about their trauma?
Yes, and I do, again, because I do talk about childhood emotional neglect, that not addressing children's emotions and not really helping them to process their emotions is a form of childhood emotional neglect. And the biggest thing around stigma is awareness. That's the first step. We have to be aware of what are these things. And, yes, abuse is obvious. Neglect in terms of like physical neglect. Kids don't have clothes, they don't have food, they don't have a stable home. All of those things are more visible. Their parents were addicted, they had a substance use disorder, they had a parent die by suicide. Some of those things are more obvious. It's those subtle things, and so that awareness is one of the first pieces. And I know I've had so many conversations with close friends, even since I've written the book who've read it and were, just reading the book alone, I think really opened up a lot of things for them, and they felt safe reading it because I was not a kid that if you would have saw me, you would have known everything that I was going through. I looked like, I was princess of the prom. I was married. I was dating the captain of the football team. I was on student council. I was very accomplished. And so I was a popular kid. I was one of those kids that wasn't obviously struggling. And so I think that the more those of us who people think you have it all together, the more we talk about those things and share, I think that's really important for breaking down the stigma. And that's what I heard from a lot of people. So it's opening up that door. And, I talk about the different ways that showed up in my life, again, not the outward obvious, but those things that maybe are more subtle, that are part of every family. It's that awareness that the stigma is just, we don't want to talk about it, and that's the first piece, is being aware of it. That doesn't mean you have to have therapy constantly. It's just about, all right, I'm struggling and maybe I need to go somewhere to talk to someone. And so, again, that awareness is the first piece. And then understanding ourselves, understanding our emotions and why we do things, is another piece. And I look at that a little bit, and I also connect it to how the trauma came out in my physical illnesses. That, a lot, we may not see things. It's the stigma of mental illness is, it's going to take a lot of work, and we have to just continue to keep doing that. And the more I share my story, it makes it easier for me to then not only advocate for myself, but advocate for others. So, it's that, let's keep walking. And then when you find people that you connect with and you can have those conversations with, keep having those conversations and keep the conversation going. It's not just wallowing in our misery. It's about, okay, yes, these things happen to me, and what are we going to do next? It's always thinking about what we could do to move forward. It's not just being stuck. That's kind of the piece of shifting your mindset. Yes, you want to acknowledge all of that, though you want to really look at, okay, and what am I going to do about it? And figuring out what's going to work for you. So I talk about stigma, definitely. And I think that awareness is the first piece. I'm doing more. And a lot of what I do in schools, and really kind of opening up and showing things a little bit more, but it's got to be little baby steps, because we can't change things overnight. And so giving ourselves that grace as well.
And it's a process, like you said. It's step by step, and sometimes they're baby steps, and sometimes we get stuck. But one of the biggest A's in life is awareness, and that's empowering, just to be aware, because it really does help us go from being, oh my gosh, this happened to me in my life, to a place where it doesn't define who we are. It's just something that happened in our lives. And how can we make it better? Like you said, moving forward, taking those steps. So I think we have time for one more question. So could you explain one of the ways in which, the book helps readers transition from surviving to thriving? And you have been talking about this through the interview. And perhaps, another actionable step that somebody could, take to facilitate transformation that maybe would be easy enough to do today. I mean, awareness is one of them, and that's more of it's a verb, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a constant. I think one of the big things, and when I do trainings in schools and just talking to anyone, I always, Dr. Nadine Burke Harris has a TED Talk, and she talks about the Adverse Childhood Experiences study and how childhood trauma impacts our health and impacts us in so many ways. And it's a 16-minute video, and it's a TED Talk. So again, Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, I think everyone should see that, because that was a life changer for me. When I heard about the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, that was a pivotal shift for me, because it was like that helped me to go from what's wrong with me to what happened to me, like that alone. So I think that's something that somebody could do right away. You can listen to it on your phone. I think that having that awareness and starting to understand these are things that may have been trauma in my life, and this is how it may have impacted me, that's the first step to really being able to then start your healing journey. Without that initial awareness, it's going to be a longer journey to get to where you want to be. So I think that that's kind of one of my big pieces of advice that I would recommend.
That sounds like a great place to start. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you so much for sharing these amazing tips with us. And I know that this is just an amazing read that just everyone who's had any kind of trauma should go and grab a copy and read this book. Dr. Ann, thank you for stopping by. To our amazing audience, thank you very, very much. We'd love to have you back because, 30 minutes goes by so quickly. So we'd love to welcome you back to the show another time to talk a bit more in depth about what you share in the book. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you back next time on another episode of the Writer's Corner live show.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Writer's Corner live show. 30 minutes of insightful author conversations with some of the biggest names in the industry, including award-winning authors and international indie sensations. Join us on the next episode of the Writer's Corner live show.